the DORK Podcast with Rich Keefe. It's the DORK Podcast. Ryan Davis. It's the DORK Podcast. Hashtag. It's the hashtag DORK Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. He is a member of the Dharma Initiative. All hail the king of ginger ale. It's Ryan Davey. Davey, how are you?
I'm okay. I think I would probably have been a member of the Dharma Initiative if given the chance.
Yeah, they're looking for smart people. They're looking for scholars, people that can work on different things. I think you'd definitely be somebody they'd recruit. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you like a fresh cool opportunity like that. That seems like a pretty good idea. Joining us on the podcast today is the man who voted this show #1 on his top 50 TV shows list. It did come into our top 20. He has been on the podcast before. You know him as Jason Rossi. It's Jason Rossi. Rossi, how are you?
I'm bubbly.
Otherwise known as Jason Rossi.
You know Jason Rossi.
You know him as this. Guess
Yes.
what? He also is this.
Yes.
So if Davey was a part of the Dharma Initiative, does that mean he's dead?
Well, not to jump ahead too far, but yeah, I think everybody's dead.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, we have to put that warning out. We have to do it.
Oceanic Flight 815. Yeah, so this is a different. So both of you guys watched the show live back from 2004 all the way through 2010 when it wrapped up. I literally watched this show for the first time ever July. I started it in July. I had never seen a single episode, and all I remember from it was like commercials during Monday Night Football. Or I was talking to Mac about this. It came out similar time as Desperate Housewives, which I did watch with Terry Hatcher.
Ooh, sexy show. We doing that next week?
We are doing Desperate Housewives, the entire series, which I have already watched. We're doing that next week. No, but I remember just seeing Jack and Sawyer and Kate and Locke. Oh, and Hurley. Those five, I remember popping up all the time, and like all the commercials were about those five. And I'm like, clearly the show's pretty good, but I just never dipped in. Rossi, you were in from day one.
Well, interesting. Like
Day
2. So this show was on, I believe it was Wednesday nights, about 8:00, and that was the same time as Smallville, which I was a huge Smallville fan. And this is before, just in case people like, this is really weird to talk about. This was almost 20 years ago. There wasn't even DVRs yet. So I had to record my shows. I had 2 different VCRs going at all times. So I was interested in Lost, but I was like, nah, it's kind of weird. I don't know. So back in the day, kids, during the summer, they used to re-air the shows straight through because there was just about 20 weeks between the end of May and the beginning of September, give or take. So when that happened, that's when I started watching Lost season 1, and I was hooked.
Yeah. Dave, same with you. Right?
So I actually, same thing. Like I resisted it a little bit. I didn't watch the first season as it was live, but I got a job. I got a job teaching. And the very first thing I bought with my first paycheck was that baseball glove. And the second thing I bought was a TiVo.
Oh.
So TiVo was like the big shit back in the day. So like I TiVo'd in the summer all of Lost, the season 1. So I watched it, I binged it, and then caught up with season 2 and then watched it live.
Yeah, because for me, I was in college in 2004, and if it debuted in the fall, like you're not watching TV shows in college like, oh, it's Wednesday at 8, we got to watch this show. Like maybe if it was on the weekend you had a chance, you know, because I remember we'd watch football all day, and then I think Desperate Housewives was a Sunday show, because I think I remember watching that being like, we got to watch this because Terry Hatcher. But like anything during the week I kind of lost in the shuffle. Like I would try to watch Raw, but like didn't watch it every week, and like so I just missed Lost. But it clearly like just turned into like a phenomenon, and it ended up having 121 episodes. And this is also a throwback thing. The first 3 seasons are all 23 or more episodes. Season 1's 25 episodes. That's half of a whole year to be airing shows. It seems like crazy, but that's what they were doing.
And I might be nuts, but I do think that Lost was on at 8, and then Chappelle's show was on at 10 that same night.
Oh, that could be. Yeah, Chappelle was, I feel like, was definitely a Wednesday show. So that might have been.
Yes. This makes sense, because that I know it was definitely Wednesdays when it first started. This show did bounce around times, and to keep to your point, 121 episodes. And I know we'll dive into this as we go along, but definitely not the creators, or maybe the showrunners had no wanting for that many episodes. I can give you insight on that. the network wanted it. And this was also very famously during the writer strike of 2007, I want to say. So that threw this whole show for a loop in many ways, and we can kind of dive into as we get into different seasons. But this show went through a lot of different ups and downs. And just quickly, why am I here? Right? You said I did vote this the number one show. I'm taking credit for you watching the show at this point.
Yes.
But I was very excited that it cracked the top 20. It was on how many lists? I was trying to remember back.
I didn't keep track that way. I think it was close to half. I bet at least
it was on my list for sure.
Yep. Yeah, it was on your list. And at that point, I was probably 3 or 4 seasons in when I did the voting, so I included it relatively high in mine, knowing that there was a chance it could go up or go down. It probably stayed the same. Like, to me, it's probably a top 20 show of all time.
And it's really funny, if we were to go back 20 years, it would probably be a top 5 or 10 years. Say 10 years. That's just my opinion on it, because there's just so many shows that have developed. Look at your list. Look at that final list. Like, this show was massive, like massive. And now it's not even in anybody's like thought process. It's really strange. The show's just kind of like out there. Like,
it does. Every once in a while, like, it gets brought up, whether it be the hashtag dork list or others that you'll see, like Rolling Stone's done them, and like everybody does like their 100 best TV shows ever, and like it's on there, and it's like varying degrees. Like, some lists is pretty high, other lists is just like happens to be on there, but like it's just so many episodes, and it's amazing too. Like, you talked about the creators. I mean, you have J.J. Abrams and Damon Lindelof on this. Now, that sort of launched Lindelof, but he also did The Leftovers and Watchmen, which are like 2 of my favorite shows of all time. So that guy, really, whatever he's attached to, I'm going to watch it and check it out. Drew Goddard was a big part of this. Dave Daredevil, Buffy. He was in a whole bunch of different stuff, right?
Yeah, he did a lot of Angel, too.
And
the
Angel.
Buffy spinoff. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know what else he's done, but
Cabin in the Woods was Drew Goddard.
Yes. I think Brian Burke is involved with that too, and a couple other things. He's another famous name on this. Carlton Cuse, who did
Bates Motel.
The Psycho.
It was good.
Yeah. These guys, there were some heavy hitters on this show.
Funny though, the actors really didn't spin off too successfully, I wouldn't say, with the exception of Kate, who got that MCU money as the Wasp, but
that's so much later. It took her a long. She was in that movie with Wolverine there, the boxing something steel, real steel.
I don't remember that.
That's like the one she was on like a bunch of small things, but then it really ended up.
I remember she did like a brief cameo in The Hurt Locker too. She was like Jeremy Renner's wife at the end.
How about that? Hawkeye.
And she like didn't say anything. So like she did it for scale, because like she wanted to be in it, but she didn't speak ever.
It's interesting. And I think so we're talking about Evangeline Lilly, but then Sawyer, who's Josh Holloway, he was in a couple of the Mission Impossibles, but like nothing like star of the show. Matthew Fox had already done Party of 5. Trying to think who else. Like Locke's not in shit. Hurley's not in shit.
Yeah, Dominic Monaghan, who played Charlie, who was in Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
How dare you, first of all. Half of this cast went on to, what was it, Hawaii Five-0. I think you had Gin, Hurley for a little bit, Locke. I just remember, like, literally it's the advertised, like, from Laws. From Laws.
Yeah.
Michael Emerson was in Saw previous to this.
I would say that the person I picked out, and I forgot he was in this, was Hiroyuki Sanada, who played Dogen.
Oh.
Scorpion.
He's Scorpion. He was in John Wick, and he's in I believe he's in the Ghost of Tsushima game. That's him.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's what jumped out to me too. And like, this is sort of a side story, but actors who were in this that I had no idea were in it, and they ended up being probably like bigger stars. So like Julie Bowen, who's like one of the best TV actresses from Modern Family, but like Boston Legal.
Yep.
Obviously, she was in Happy Gilmore too, and she's in a bunch of those. But so Julie Bowen's in this. Is it Katie Sagal or Segal from Married with Children and from Sons of Anarchy? Like, she's in this. DJ Qualls is in this. Michelle Rodriguez, who's like a cast member in season 2. I had no idea she was in this until she popped up. So no clue.
Do you know the story of her in the show? Like, what happened?
Tell me.
So her, and then also who plays okay, now here
I have a whole list. I have a whole list of names as they're
blonde. Hurley's like girlfriend. She was also in something else. Like, she was in
Claire.
like Drew Carey.
No, not Claire.
No.
Libby?
Libby, yes.
Yeah.
The Drew Carey show, I believe she was like the love interest for like a season.
Mm-hmm.
If you deep pull up, we can do Drew Carey next week too. But Michelle Rodriguez and whoever the actress who plays Libby were caught drunk driving in Hawaii. So that is why in season 2, I believe it was towards the end, what their fatalities were due to that. So this is a Disney program.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot of little things I know I could throw in with this, because there's that one. So she debuted in the season 1 finale with Jack at the airport, Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And so then full-blown character, full arc, love story, triangle, 4-box, if you will. And then she was caught drunk driving sometime there. And then boom, character written off, never see you later.
Do you know what my favorite part of that story is? So as I read it, Michelle Rodriguez was given the option of doing 1,000 hours of community service or 30 days in jail. And she goes, jail.
Now,
Awesome. That's incredible.
what would you rather do though? That's 1,000 hours is a long time.
That's a long time. It's like,
not all jails are the same. So
not all jails are the same, but you got to figure too. Like if they give you a 30-day jail sentence, like you're going to serve 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And you got a place to sleep. You got all your meals, but I got to know the layout of it. I got to know who's in there. Who am I in there
It's
with?
in Hawaii. I mean, it can't be that bad. There's a lot of meth in Hawaii, but like.
I hope she said it like Davey too. Like, jail.
So you want me to do like 6 months of community service or 30 days in jail? Jail.
Like take the night and think about it. Nope, jail.
Nope,
take you there
good.
now.
Let's
Let's
just do it
tonight. Let's use this
Start
as the
tonight.
first one.
I'm
Kim,
my clock.
Kim Dickens is in this. She is Saracen's mom in Friday Night Lights and is still going in Fear the Walking Dead. Nathan Fillion is in this show. I was shocked to see that. Maybe the biggest surprise was Rob McElhaney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That floored me when I saw him in this. Go ahead.
I believe he has like a character name too. That was like, so while this show was airing, Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof had a podcast. This is also very early at this stage. You gotta have like you have to have the iTunes like full-blown desktop application at this point.
It was probably just them, Corolla, and Kevin Smith.
It was that they were launching it, but because Lost became such a phenomenon, they would record them on like Wednesday mornings or Tuesday nights for you to listen before the show. And they used to joke about certain characters, and then whoever Rob McElroy or whatever his name is, whoever he played, him too, his brother Rob McElroy. They named like one of the characters after one of their like inside jokes. So this is where the show like went. Like there would just be like bullshitty inside jokes that you guys have every week that we hear here, and then like turn into like part of one of the biggest television shows of the time. It was crazy.
Pretty funny. Cheech Marin is in it. Lance Reddick, pick of the pod, he's in this. Jeff Fahey, who ends up being like a good character, Lapidus, who I really like. He, to me, stole the show in Planet Terror. Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror, which is a great movie. Davey, we somehow have talked about it like 3 straight weeks.
I don't know how we've brought up Grindhouse like three weeks in a row.
Dude, Lapidus kills it in that. Hank from Breaking Bad is in this. Dylan Minnette, the fucking kid actor, Dylan Minnette, and then Allison.
He was almost Spider-Man.
Yeah, Dylan Minnette would have been a good Spider-Man, actually. Allison
James
James.
Yeah.
Oh, this was Minette's debut? That makes sense. I mean, he's young.
Yeah, he was almost Tom Holland. It was like him, Tom Holland, and someone else.
I'm surprised he didn't get it. That kid's everywhere. Or he was. I feel like now he's finally slowing down.
Wasn't he in like 13 Reasons Why? Wasn't he in that recently?
He was excellent. So season 2 is horrible. It's like unwatchable. Season 1 I thought was really good, and he was the main character in that. He also was in Scream 5, and he was in Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe. Yep. He was in a horror movie called The Open House on Netflix, which is pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
He had a little bit of a run.
Let's not sleep on Jeff Fahey as Job in The Lawnmower Man too.
Thank you,
man. Tense.
Like the Lawnmower Man.
I love the way he talks. I love his voice, his cadence, whatever it is about him. I love that guy. All right, let's start with this, especially as you watch shows now. And so we are coming at it from 2 different worlds. You guys watched it. Actually, it was 19 years ago last week that it debuted. It was September 22nd, 2004.
Fuck that. Where's the time go?
Yeah. But I not only watched it more recently, but I watched it like 3 episodes in a night, and like season 1 would end and I would start season 2. So it's a completely opposite way of watching it. And also now I think we are so programmed to try to figure shows out like right from Jump Street. And I don't know if we were doing that before or not, but I'm curious, what theories did you have? Did you maybe read about, whether they came true or not? Like, what theories did you have? Let me just jumpstart you real quick. I thought right out of the chute they were all dead. I thought it was going to be one of those stories where the plane actually crashed, they're all dead, but like they kind of go on whatever. And like, because each character, the way they talked about them, you were like, well, one guy's a drug addict, one guy or one girl was pregnant, another guy was like had like a shady job, another guy was like all this stuff that you're like the overweight guy, like all this
a couple
stuff,
that was like fighting. There was an affair,
yes,
like Jin and Sun. There was
they
an
could all
affair. So
easily
like,
be dead was how I was looking at it. Because
and I remember that being pitched early on as a theory, but then it was like, oh, they're not going to be like Hill Street Blues or whatever. That with Saint Elsewhere. Like, they're not going to do shit like that. They're not going to do shit like that or whatever. And I remember hearing that early on, and then
I'm glad they didn't do that. By the way, I'm glad it wasn't the case. And there was a few things where you're like, I really better not be. But it.
Can we clear the air that they were not dead the whole time?
They were not dead the whole time.
Is everybody cool? Everybody all right with that? Like,
yes,
they were not all dead. They were not. There's still people that believe that to this day, and I'm like, that no.
And it's funny. It's taken me 19 years, but I think we'll get to it at the end, but I think I finally understand what happened at the end.
Okay.
If we're looking, Keith, you talking just season 1 theory, like what you thought was going on, or
like whatever theories like popped into your head or that you read about as you were watching the show. So whether it was right away or even later, like however you want to start.
So for me, I think the first what the fuck moment in this show was like,
oh, actually,
okay,
Brian,
you get a plane crash.
Hold on a second. We actually have a sounder for this. We actually did some production. Time now for the biggest
what the fuck
moments from Lost. That's right.
The very first one.
The moments that made you say,
what the fuck? What the fuck?
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
The polar bear. Like, I remember, like, okay, we're on a desert island. All right, I get it. People are trying to survive. We're doing a Lord of the Flies things. And then all of a sudden a polar bear shows up and I say,
what the fuck?
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely one of them. I also loved how they told the story. We'll go back to the theories in a sec, Rossi, but the idea of ping-ponging timelines, like flashback to like present. And what I realized, it's kind of the opposite of Yellow Jackets, which I love very much, where Yellow Jackets, the stuff in the past, I'm more interested in. And then they give you like character development with the future. Whereas in Lost, I was much more interested in the present. And when they'd flashback to the past, I'm like, I get that they're sort of like, really filling in the details on these characters, but like get back to the island was usually where I was headed.
The thing with that is that's what I think made this show special and made the show, first of all, unique. Why it's my number one. Like, it made it different. You didn't have to have the characters tell you why they are the way they are. We got to see it.
That's
and
cool.
No show does that. Every show tries to like give you some sort of like, diatribe by the character explaining some situation from their past, where this literally, like, you're wondering why Jack has this hero complex the way he does. And then you see a flashback to his wife being hit by a car and then him being involved in that and like promising her she will be okay and it working out and her toes wiggling, like little like nuancy things like that throughout the entire show. That's what made it like fantastic. That first season alone, all those flashbacks where you're getting to know these characters, like mind-blowing scene after mind-blowing scene as you're watching, as you said, 25 freaking episodes. That's what made the show special to me. One of the many things.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool. And like, again, going back to then, not as many, what other shows were doing it that way, where like you would take time, like significant time to take. And that's the other thing with the shows. There were so many characters and there wasn't like one or two main characters. I mean, I know Matthew Fox and Sawyer and Kate were kind of on all the posters, but like, I don't know, you're going 12 deep probably, like right out of the chute with like a full backstory.
Like roster out there.
Episodes dedicated. Yeah. I mean, it probably was like, as the show was going on, I was just writing down like characters. I'm like Kate, Jack, Locke, Boone, Shannon, Sawyer, Hurley, Sun, Jin, Michael, Walt, Claire, and Charlie, and Saeed. And then you get to Danielle, who you find out is another person on the island. And then the others, that becomes a whole
what the fuck
kind of moment.
I'll give you one of like a first what the fuck moment. I started to take your production is when we started to see the characters like the flashback, as they call them, side plot characters intermingle with the other side character. Like you're seeing people from the past like intermingle with characters, and that was like episode like 10. And then the now I'm already forget Ethan Rom, even though that wasn't his real name, was an algorithm for other men. But when Ethan, who is a guy who we thought was on the plane, and you found out was not on the plane, that was the moment that was episode 9 that changed the game.
Yeah,
that was the first one. Like, holy shit.
The character connection thing was wild. And then that starts really making you race through the theories. You're like, well, how the fuck in the whole world, all these people that are on the plane together, and then some of them had info that the other ones like they weren't sharing, but like as the viewer, that's another thing I started writing down from Jump Street. I was like, all right, so Sawyer knew Jack's dad. I'm like, oh, that's a fucking coincidence. And then Saeed knew Kate's dad. Boone and Shannon's dad was killed by Jack's wife. Hurley and Libby were in the same hospital. Anna Lucia talked to Jack's dad at the airport bar, and then she went with him when he met Sawyer. So Anna Lucia was outside that bar when they were inside talking. Desmond knew Libby. She gave him her dead husband's boat. Jack's dad worked with Claire's mom, and then you find out Jack and Claire are related. Yeah, they're together.
They did the sex.
Kate helped Cassidy, who is Sawyer's friend. That's Kim
baby mama.
Then you get into all the Jacob stuff too. Like, and then so that opens up another whole floodgate thing. And
Sawyer,
and the whole Faraday thing was like fuck too, because remember he was like he got killed by his own mom.
Oh yes. My god, the time once you get into the time travel, it is pretty tough to keep up with.
The mixed bag. But one thing also, the person who taught Sawyer how to become a torturer was also like in the war with like Kate's dad.
Yes, yeah. Insane.
Like, I don't know if you get that. Sorry, I apologize.
No, I think I might have had that one. Yeah, I just said Saeed knew.
My bad. But that's another one of those. In the first season, there was a flashback while you're seeing Kate's dad, and this TV screen in the background, Saeed's being like ushered away on the news. It was just like, and this is like first season. Like if you've watched the show, you get it now. But like when you're first watching, like holy crap! So this was the first show also that became very famous for screen grabs. Like people would like take pictures with their goddamn like disposable cameras
like
and like
phone.
digital cameras. Yeah, and then like upload them to their computer to post on the ABC Lost boards. It was different. Like I don't even know how to like what Reddit is now is close to.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I think this is the first show I ever like, all right, I need to figure some shit out. And I went on like an IMDb message board to like actually like read what people were saying about it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, even though like you said, there were podcasts, they certainly weren't as popular. So like this would have been like a weekly podcast on Lost would have been a smash. Like there now.
There was a couple like the one thing I did right when you brought this up, I was like, I don't know if this show would have been big. I feel like it would have if this was like during the Netflix era. Like, say this was, I don't know, 8 years or 6 years ago. Like, I just don't know. Clearly, there wouldn't be as many episodes. It would have been more like to the point. But I think that's also what made Lost kind of like I like about it is like they didn't rush you to anything. Everything kind of takes its time and marinates.
But it was frustrating at the time because like as a weekly show, like if it was just like a fucking throwaway episode and it didn't like further the plot any and it was like more side quest stuff. Like I remember getting pissed off about it because it was such a build up every week. And that Thursday morning, like when you walk into work or you walk into school and that's like the first thing anyone ever says, you walk in the door, like, holy shit, did you see that last night? And then if it was just one that was kind of boring, you're like, meh. You know, your Thursday kind of sucked.
Yeah,
you had nothing to talk about.
The last 2 seasons in particular had a few of those where you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what's sneaky for a lot of those? Actually, season 2. Season 2, when they were like, I believe is it season 2 or season 3 when Kate and Sawyer were in the cages?
That was
3.
3. The beginning of season 3 is one of the slowest arcs of the show because and when it aired live, there were 6 episodes. They did like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then took a 2-month break. So the episode where Jack at the end screams, "Damn it, Kate, run!" That was a cliffhanger for 2 months.
Yeah.
What are we doing? That whole like side island when like when Kate's having like dinner with with like it was just a weird
Oh,
everything
Ben?
with the cages.
With Ben,
yeah,
yeah.
with Ben. Sorry. And
By the way, Michael
weird.
fucked him. Fucking Michael, dude. Michael absolutely fucked him, and I didn't realize the off the screen story with Michelle Rodriguez and stuff. That was a wild moment, but it was also incredibly unnecessary. Like he could have gotten what he wanted without fucking sticking a bullet in both of them, or they could have worked together. The whole thing, it is frustrating, but I mean, I guess it makes for good storytelling. Like that, they captured Ben, they had Ben, and that was like he's the brains of the whole situation on the other side of the island, and he got out of there.
Well, they had the boat or the submarine too, and they were like on their way out.
They had the sub, they had everything they needed. And what I love about that too, and we can get into like favorite character, because early on, Saeed, I think, is far and away the best character.
Yep.
They fuck him in the last couple of seasons, and
It-
not his fault, but like talk about taking a great character and making him useless. Like they should have just killed him off, give him a cool death scene, and then he would have gone on as one of the great characters ever. He got just destroyed in those final 2 seasons. He was like a zombie at one point.
But I think it was
him
cool.
and
Like,
Michael both.
yeah,
Ugh.
Michael kind of sucked. I love Saeed in the first 3 seasons, and I think his slack got picked up by Desmond. I think Desmond really picked up towards the end.
Better. Yes.
Nice.
One character that got killed that I was pissed that got killed was Mr. Echo. I loved Mr. Echo.
And
And
a
another-
bullshit death. That was a throwaway
Yeah.
bullshit. Like, what are you doing? That was so. First of all, he gets attacked by a polar bear. Then you're like, is the polar bear gonna kill him? And then you're like, randomly, the black smoke at that time chooses one guy, and the black smoke kills Echo. And it was useless because they were building Echo up to be one of the most badass characters on the entire show. That one bummed me out. Was that season 2 or 3? That was
2. That was early.
2. So here's 2 stories on that. One, don't get me to try to say his actor's name.
We know who you're talking about.
Waka Migi. But so I say it anyways. But there's another one. He did not want to be on a show. He said he only liked doing movies, and he only wanted to put in what would be a movie. So it was like 3 months of work he put in. And then he was like, I'm out. I don't want to be in Hawaii.
Oh, he was so good.
I don't want to be involved. So that they were writing a whole story. There's a good amount of articles about it. Where if you remember, they were building a church. He was trying to like resolve Charlie of his sins. So he was going to play this character that was going to be like an on-island, like not only priest, but he wasn't really a priest as we know, but like he was going to be like resolving them of their prior issues. And then this was going to he was going to be part of like the upper core. Like their writing style was like, it was going to be Ben, Jack, Locke, because there's Faith, there's Man of Science, there's this guy who lived in the island. Then there was going to be another side where Echo was going to play like this middleman that they were trying to, work out. And then he's like, nah, I don't want to do this. And instead of like finding a way to like leave something open, they have the smoke monster just pick him up and slam him like he's like a toy. And
it's like there's no payoff there. You're not like putting over another character. Like in wrestling, it'd be like you're mad at a guy, so you trot him out there, he just gets pinned by nobody, and you just like move on. You're like, wait, what?
That's literally what it was. You're pushing. He does something you don't like, he melts off. But
it was so cool. I was like making notes because I'm like, I'm binge watching. I'm gonna forget stuff, and I remember one of my notes. I'm like, Echo's the man. I'm like, he's the coolest character there, and they dedicated a lot of time to him. Like they had his whole backstory when he's a little kid and he saves his brother. He's sticking up to all those guys that are trying to like take advantage of that small little area that he lived in. The whole thing with the planes. Then he's with Charlie and he's getting the drug. Like it was so cool. And then he was gone. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck?
That scene also, if you look up screen grabs, when the smoke monster first, that's the first time we see the smoke monster, by the way. So that was a big scene. When it approaches Echo, when you see like what Echo's seeing, there was a bunch of screen grabs in there. It was like flashing lights to you. If you hit pause, it was all scenes of Echo's past. Wow. So this is where the theory started to come that the smoke monster is this like this
the past. Come on, get you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't hide from your past. So that was a whole theory. When you go back to theories, that was a big thing that came out about the smoke monster, that it was this like of your past is here to haunt you. That's why you're on this island. There was theory that the smoke monster pulled the plane down. There was all these different.
Well, Obi in the chat says, he goes, if you don't believe this, on rewatch you could see the smoke monster hit the plane in episode 1.
No. I'm sure that there's something there potentially to Obi, but that did not happen.
Well, they just hit a seagull, Rossi. They hit something.
Yeah. You guys know how plane crashes work, right?
Because season 1 basically is just like you find out who survived and how they're gonna survive. They discover the hatch. They're building a boat. They discover that somebody else is on the island and Danielle, and then you see like a polar bear and a smoke monster. Whereas season 2, which I thought was pretty sick, is you find out like the second half of the plane also has survivors. So it's people that like, yeah, they mingled in the airport, or like obviously Jack and Ana Lucia, like most prominently, like they mingled a little bit. Then you sort of figure out about this Dharma initiative. And
that was
then,
in the hatch, right? They were in
yes,
the
Yeah.
ship.
Can we just pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
The season finale of season 1 might be like one of the, like the premiere and the finale are two of the greatest episodes.
Looking down the hatch.
They look down the hatch, but also simultaneously, there's members of they built a boat, they float away. You know, you have Jin, Sawyer, Michael, Walt. I think that was all on there. And then you see this light pop up and you think they're rescued. This dude in a beard, and he's just like, we're going to take the boy. And in that moment, your jaws drop and they go, they get him. And then the next scene is them going to find where they finally, Locke had dug out the hatch. They blow it up after Arntz blew up. And
hilarious, by the way, fucking Arntz, and they couldn't say his name right. Hurley kept calling him like Ernst or something. He's like, it's Arntz.
Yes.
He's like, whatever. And then he's like, careful with the dynamite. The dynamite's very touchy. And then he fucking blows up. Great.
By the way, the ball's on them to still go for it. Like, we'll be fine just because it happened again.
And then like 2 seasons later, they're back with the dynamite sticks again. You're like, Jesus Christ.
That finale had those two like huge moments but like the hatch blow up is like iconic at this point. The look down, the quarantine on the other side of the hatch, and then you just see that like the music. By the way, Michael Giacchino, I believe is how you say his name. Like unbelievable with this show, with the music in this, and just that like as it's peering down, you're like, what could be in this thing?
What are we doing? Yeah, it's funny because some people, from what I read, like season 2 more than season 1. I disagree. I think season 1 is the better one. Like, and to your point, the beginning and the end of it's pretty tight with all those characters. Whereas season 2, there's too many highs and lows, and I felt like it was an finale. Like if I was watching in real time, I would have been like, not much happens. Just kind of flutters out, and you're waiting for either a moment like you got in season 1, or you're waiting for some sort of like bigger cliffhanger for season 3. So it just kind of ended.
Season 2 finale was
like nothing.
No, there had to be that was nothing. Because I'm trying to think, they always had good finales. They always had little.
It was always like a cliffhanger at the end.
There was a hatch.
So Michael and I forget if this is the finale.
Walt, they leave.
Michael and Walt leave. Jack, Kate, and Sawyer are now with the others, and then Desmond's girlfriend is sending people after. Penny is sending people after.
You see the snow globe type of thing, the frozen area, because they blow up the hatch basically.
Okay, yeah.
Like they let the thing, and then but the thing about that, there was a lot of rumors was if you see when they're putting the mask on Sawyer, Kate, Hurley, Jack, like Sawyer and Kate kind of give each other this weird look, but it amounted to absolutely nothing. It was just like if you look at it, there was a lot of people looking at it. Then season 3, which also could be one that was at the time very iconic finale. We didn't realize we transitioned from backs to flash forwards.
Yes. Yeah, that was sick. So the end of season 3, you're now like, oh, now I know a few characters survived. You don't know how many, you don't know all that yet. And then at one point they mentioned the Oceanic 6, but you don't know who the 6 are yet. You know that Jack and Kate are 2 of them, and then you're trying to like figure out who else is there.
When that aired, there was a lot that I remember being depressed watching that with Jack. A big beard and listen to Nirvana, driving drunk. Who hasn't been there? Who hasn't been there?
God.
Yeah. So the big theory there was that was actually the final scene of the entire show. There was like a theory going around that Jack, but you kind of knew like, oh, they're just going to leave it with them just having a random one-off conversation. No. But that was like a huge, at the time, a big theory that we were seeing what the end of the show is. So you asked like, what were theories throughout? Like our theories are one, but like people were starting to think like, is this show? Because then by season 3, you started to figure out that like this show isn't about like the mysteries. Like that was something they were trying to hammer home. And this is probably hard for if you're watching first time. Yeah. The mysteries were like aside, like that's just kind of like a cool thing. It was really about these characters and how their conflicts and these intermingle. But like Davey was saying, like when you're watching, like, what's the answer to that? Why are there numbers? What's a plane doing flying into this thing? And
like, that was the other thing. People trying to figure out like what the numbers meant.
Yes.
The whole time. Like I remember that being a topic of conversation, whether it was like coordinates or like birthdays or numerology, or like people were getting fucking hard on this stuff. Like everyone was a fucking code breaker.
The writers are just like literally, I'll never forget. Like, and then if you didn't watch a show, here's a spoiler. The numbers just were like these corresponding things on a wall that Jacob wrote because he was feeling like it. And then the numbers also were on some big dial that when you went to them, it showed their home. So it like tied into them throughout life. And there was also where they sat on the plane.
Kind of
cool. Thanks, guys.
Fall apart a little bit. Oh,
yeah, that's why we don't need answers. That's why, like, we don't need answers sometimes.
No, I guess. So before 10 minutes ago, we're talking about Saeed, and I just wanted to say, one thing I love about Saeed though, and because it was kind of split when they captured Ben and they didn't know who he was, and he was saying his name was Henry, and they were interrogating him because Saeed was legit an interrogator. And they're all going back and forth. So I'm like, well, no, I think he's telling the truth. Saeed sniffed that shit out like immediately. And they were like, for 2.5 seasons, maybe 3 seasons, anything that Saeed said was right. Like anytime there was a character that like the group was on the fence about, Saeed was 100% right. Or like any kind of plan they had, like just listen to him the whole time and you would have been in good shape.
Speaking of listening to him the whole time too, he had one of the most calming voices. That actor, like he had talked in like almost like a whisper voice with that accent.
Yep, love
it's
him.
Like music. It's like church bells.
Love
unbelievable work.
Love him.
Yeah.
Imagine if he used his British voice. Like, too bad they didn't use his real voice.
No, they didn't go there. Season 3.
Can I give you one thing real quick on Saeed?
Yes. Yeah.
Not only that, like obviously, yes, he had a great line, especially with Ben. He's like, about being a torturer. He's like, he was incredible. That you're right. That whole scene, but the drop up of him too, what you guys were kind of alluding to earlier. That was like super controversial too. So I don't want to be getting to like this side of it, but like just to paint the picture, like Michael and Saeed, those are two characters that just totally went off the rails. And there was a lot of bite back on, especially Michael. I don't know if you've ever read any of the stuff that I forget. Harold Perrineau, I believe is the actor's name. He is like completely destroyed them. But then he did like a show recently with
he's in From. He's in the show From, which I love. And I didn't even know he was in Lost. And then people are like, because From has Lost vibes. And everybody's like, it's got Lost vibes. Plus it has Michael. It's got the guy, like the lead guy is from Lost. I'm like, oh, no shit. So it was weird for me to see him in this show first, or see him in From first, and then go back and watch him like 20 years ago in this.
And he was also my favorite character in Romeo and Juliet in the Claire Danes, Leo DiCaprio.
There you go.
Version. He was Mercutio.
That's right. Yeah. But
the one who he dies.
I saw it like in theaters. It would middle school.
He's the one Tybalt kills him, and he goes berserk, and he starts like a pox on both your houses, a plague on both your houses. That guy.
Yeah.
That's him.
And at least to put a bow on this part for Saeed too. You mentioned you kind of like, but his like whole situation in season 5 and 6 really is like so ridiculous. And then they try to revive it all at the very, very end, but that we're like so far gone. Like his arc, like,
no, he's gone. They fucking absolutely torched him, and it was one of the great characters in TV. And then they took a shit on him. He was. I can't think of. We were talking about in Stranger Things. What's the fucking the dude with the best hair? What's his name?
Eddie.
Steve. So like Steve's a prime example of a character on TV who sucks at first and then becomes amazing. I don't know how many amazing characters end up sucking so bad. And it was just like they made him like brainwashed, and then they like he's working for fucking Ben outside. Like when they survive, like he survives and he's still working for him. Yeah, they made him like very like one note, and he's like, well, like the love of my life's dead, so I'll do whatever you say now. And you're like, what?
But it's also like, which one of your loves? That was another thing to say. He had Nadia off island.
Yeah.
And then it's like Shannon on island. She died, but a while ago, and that's like, I got nothing to live for. Then he gets off island, meets up with Nadia again. She gets killed.
Yeah,
and it's just like, well, let's just kill this guy and throw him in some holy water. See what happens.
Season 3, you get a lot of Juliet, who ended up being one of my favorite characters too. She was there in season 3 all the way to the end. I thought she was awesome. And this also leads into best couple. There's 1,000 couples on this show.
Oh my God. They're all banging each other.
So you got Jack and Kate,
No
Kate and Sawyer, Sawyer and Juliet, Juliet and Jack, Saeed and Shannon, Sun and Jin, Hurley and Libby, Rose and Bernard, Charlie and Claire, Desmond and Penny, Locke and Helen, Daniel and Charlotte, and Nikki and Paulo. Who, let me real quick, Nikki and Paulo. There's like one episode dedicated to Nikki and Paulo. So what's really funny? What's that?
The name of the episode is Expose.
Okay, so if you want to rewatch it, go to Expose. So Nikki and Paulo, it's hilarious because they mentioned many times, and like they have like the manifest and everything, that there's like whatever it is, like 40 survivors, 48 survivors, but you really only hear like 12 of them talk. So there's other characters there, and then they run into Nikki and Paulo, and they're there, and they're like, they chime in, and like, I don't know, they're fighting over food or whatever.
Oh,
and then
okay.
So then there's like this backstory of them, and like she's a con artist, and they're together, and like they have like diamonds or whatever.
That's
and
what it is. The jewel thieves. I was like, how does this sound familiar? Yeah.
But it's right when I thought it was going nowhere, it ended up being one of the coolest parts of the whole show. So the two of them are fighting with each other. They're like, one's backstabbing the other, double cross, triple cross. They get some of this poison, or Nikki gets some of this like poison
from a spider.
And they're fighting over like who's gonna have the jewels or whatever. They end up both getting poisoned, and it's like a whodunit, like the whole murder mystery episode. And then Sawyer and Hurley and them are like, that's fucked up, that's sad, they're dead. So they bury them, and then they were really just paralyzed for like a few hours. That's what they taught. Like, I think it was Arnst who like told them about these bugs or whatever. And then right, it was Arnst, and so they get
Arnst.
They get fucking buried.
Science teacher.
They get buried alive. They get buried alive. And then they don't mention them for like 2 seasons. And then they like mention their names like one off like later on. It's unbelievable.
You see them one more time. But
you do.
The thing with that episode too is, so everything around the show, you know, from opening scene to closing scene, there's a lot of things with like eyes and like eyes opening or eyes being seen. So in that scene, when the dirt starts to go on, you see both Nikki and Paul's eyes just open up real quick, but it's too late. And they're just tossing dirt on them. Like, holy
like, these characters, like, I don't really give a shit about these characters, and then they're here, they're there, they're gone, and I was like, wow, they buried alive.
Would have run. That also somewhere in season 3, as you're mentioning, that's when we started to really get deeper into the Jacob things. When like he was mentioned, his cabin, the like gunpowder around it.
Ben took Locke to the cabin, and like Ben couldn't hear him, but Locke could.
So there's a famous eye scene there too, where Locke's in there and like the chair's rocking. There's all stuff, and you see an eyeball at the door, and so that became this huge thing of like, who is this Jacob? How do we know him? What does he do? And then that you know, that's a whole nother story that kind of goes a little bit.
I mean, the Jacob shit ended up being pretty lame to me. Like, I didn't think it was a great payoff, because I understand that like this island has to have some sort of like magic or something around it. Like, I get that they tell a great story. Like, how do you get on and off? I think the Dharma Initiative people, like, that made enough sense to me, and I get all that. But then, like,
there was a definite. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just getting like, I don't get like his all. It like he's like he could travel anywhere he wants to go. He knows everything about everybody. He's somehow able to manipulate all of those people to get on the same plane at the same time and then crash that plane. Like he picked out all those people.
Yes, because that was the whole thing when you got to that stupid sundial thing that we only saw once. And I don't know how they never noticed that up in the sky. The statue was a whole nother. That was cool. 3-toe statue, that whole thing. That was intriguing.
But where this kind of jumped the shark for me was when they moved the island.
Yeah.
It's end of season 4.
I was like, Jesus Christ.
They could go down there, they could fuck about, they could move it, and then it would just move all the time, and then it was jumping times. And I'm like, here we go. We are now times traveling, and they did, and like they made the most of it, I guess. And then it was kind of funny to see Sawyer, Juliet, Miles, Jin, and that might have been it.
Hurley. Like, no, Hurley went off island.
He went off, but they like stayed behind, and for 3 years were working for the Dharma Initiative, which also made me think they were really together for like 2 months, right? When they were on the beach. I think it was 2 months before all the shit happened and people either got off or they stayed or whatever. And Sawyer jumps off the helicopter and all that stuff. And so at that point, I'm like, he would be way more tied to all of those people than he would be
Well,
Kate. and
he
Trevor.
was, if you remember, like that
Well,
was the
to
whole
Juliet,
thing.
he was. I don't know if he was to like Jin and Miles and those guys, and like he was.
Oh,
with them
you mean
for
the
3
kid? I
years.
thought he like. Remember, he didn't want to leave. Like Jack's like, we got a way back. He was like, yeah, I'm
Oh, no.
good.
No. And like he clearly, like to me, Juliet and Sawyer were the best couple on the whole show. Like I was rooting like crazy for those two. I liked those two together. Sawyer in the first season, I was like off and on because some of it was like too much of like the tough guy routine. But then as it went on, yeah, too much. But then as it went on, like he ended up being one of my 3 or 4 favorite characters.
So if you can highlight, I think it's Christopher Bernard here.
Yeah.
That second, the J.J. Abrams wanted the show to end because that is true. So he wanted it to be a 3-season. They had the theory of the show between seasons 1 and 3. And they said basically this is where they wanted to go. The whole flash forward, people coming off the island, time travel was all they needed to figure out because ABC and Disney at the time, you have to remember this is before streaming, said people are actually watching the show. Like a shitload of people watch a show every week. We need more. So that's when they went from in the middle of season 2, you start to, if you really like, I watch it back a few times, you start to see like, we're just going to drag this. And that's where I go back to the cages. That was totally like, let's just fill some shit in here.
Oh my God. The stupid cages. That makes sense because the Leftovers with Lindelof is 3 seasons and then Watchmen is 1. Like they're not trying to do 121 episodes.
Yeah. That's where they really tried to stretch. You got a lot of these fillers, and like that's where you talk about like the Nikki Paulo episode. You get Jack's stupid tattoos. To this day, the worst episode of that show. Completely unwatchable. Nobody cared.
Great question. That like, what's the worst episode? That's up there. I would also would like to present to the committee the whole Richard Alpert episode in season 6.
Is that when? Is that
that's
who's Richard Alpert? Is that Locke or it's Locke?
No.
Richard Alpert is the one with the eye makeup.
The guy that has like the eyeliner.
Oh yeah. The guy who can't die.
When Juliet to get on the island, what a great line. She's like, well, if my husband got hit by a bus, and then the next day he got hit by a bus. And
but he was the guy who couldn't die, who didn't age.
Yes.
Right?
He was blessed by Jacob.
So it was a whole thing like with him and his wife.
You didn't like that?
I hated it. Oh,
so that was interesting. I like that one because that you got to like, because we've seen, again, maybe watching it live, I've literally put in 6 years of like, who is this random guy? What is his story? So I finally got
with the eyeliner.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that one interested me because that was when he was on the Black Rock boat that crashed into the statue thing that still don't really understand the statue, but
I don't understand was that season 5 or 6?
No, that was 6. That was 6. Because 6 gave us the Richard Alpert episode. You got the island kind of backstory with Jacob and the Man in Black with their mother, who you talked about earlier.
Allison Janney wasn't their mother. Allison Janney killed their mother.
Oh, sorry. Yes, my bad. She took that woman on the beach and was like, I'm gonna take these babies. And that's where the whole backgammon, right? Is that the name of that game with the white and the black?
Yeah, backgammon. Yeah.
That's like a whole but like that again,
like candidates to like lead the island, and somebody has to lead the island. So these are all his candidates.
And they have to go to the heart of the island and uncork it and then put the cork back in. Like it was so stupid.
Shake it.
I love the show. Like nobody's business. And we haven't even touched on I'll wrap up most of my thoughts, but like looking back, that is the hardest part for me. Like when watching it live was like an experience like no other. I'm listening to podcasts, I'm watching things like theories, everybody's going crazy. Then there was just this, like, I don't know how to explain, just like theories were still going, but the attention to the show totally dipped. People like, what are we doing? You talked about jumping timelines.
Or going sideways of alternate timelines, which I know now is normal. And shows do that all the time. But at the time, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and I remember them announcing
fucking bananas to me.
Go ahead. It was trash.
They announced that it was the last season. So you're like, all right, they're going to start wrapping stuff up in the last season. And they just kept adding more stuff.
Yeah. The first scene of season 6 is you're on a plane. Jack, it looks like it's a replication of the first scene. And then fucking Desmond sits down next to me like, oh shit, what's going on here? I'll tell you one of my theories in a moment, what I thought was happening. And then they just do this, like the plane flies over where you would have crashed, was just a little bump. Rosa Bernard, like he comes, sits, and then they do this freaking horrible effects of going down under the water, and then there's the island under the water, and literally I remember even watching it live going like, what are we doing? Like, what is this? Because that was started because what was that, the bomb that Juliet had to set off, which was known as the hydrogen bomb for all these years. So that split the time. What are we like? That was
one thing I loved with this arc with like the time hopping and stuff. I love the Faraday Desmond stuff from the like when Penny
Oh.
called him like on the day at the time.
That was
like
good.
that was a hit it.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Like that was another one of those where you're like, oh my god,
Don't
like
change your number. That's the one of the that love story is one of the best of all time in any.
and
TV
I would
show.
say that's
Desmond
my
and Penny.
favorite couple of the
Desmond and
Yes.
Penny. That's a
Yeah.
good
I was
one.
agreed. So watching that live, like Desmond's introduction, David was kind of hitting on this earlier. Like everything about him, his character was so well written because you didn't get a ton of them for a long time, and then you were so tied into him. If you remember when Off Island, Ben wanted to kill his son Charlie for like in Penny, like he wanted to kill them because his daughter died because
Ben's
of
daughter.
the smoke monster. Yes, all
Well,
that.
not really
It's-
Ben's daughter, really Danielle's daughter, and he stole her.
Yeah, another lot of
I like that.
you know,
I like that stuff. The
like,
but then there's a stretch there where they really are pitting Charles Widmore versus Ben,
versus Ben. Yeah.
and you're like, I want them both to lose. I'm like, could they both? Like, there's no rooting interest in those two at all.
You know what I just remembered? Probably one of the biggest what the fuck moments that like people were talking about for weeks.
Go ahead.
Not Penny's boat.
Oh yeah, Charlie.
When Charlie died, when he had to
Big
put his
time.
hand
That
on
was
the
there's
thing.
a lot of emotion.
I also feel like, even though Charlie may have been the worst character on the entire show,
Whoa.
who's worse than Charlie?
Let me start.
I hated. I think you were supposed to, but I hated Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon sucked. Shannon sucked. Anna Lucia, trash. I'm trying to think.
Anna Lucia was tough. Who killed Shannon, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But she was just
By accident.
didn't
Like,
mean
that's
to.
lame.
Fuck
a lot of
outta here.
accidental shots in the show.
So
A lot of
Charlie
people
was
shooting.
the only thing worse than Charlie was the way Claire said Charlie. It was the only thing.
Charlie.
And then their whole back and forth. I'm like, I don't care. But no, Charlie, I feel like going back, if you watch that whole sequence again, where Desmond and Charlie are down there, and there's a couple people there, and then the other guy, the crazy guy, comes in after him. I feel like Charlie probably couldn't survive that. Like, I don't.
That's a whole. So yes. So, but
For
he
sure.
knew he needed. But you have to remember, he knew he needed to die.
Oh, right. 'Cause
That was
Desmond
kind of
had
like
seen him
you have to
die.
remember. Yeah, like if you keep avoiding death, eventually you're going to die. Here's like where you can do it to help people.
Final
Was
Destination
it Desmond was trying to like
100%.
save him the whole time because Desmond kept having visions that he was going to die, so he had to like try to save him every episode.
Yeah, as part of the catch blowing up, Desmond got these visions, and that's when he was able to jump out. He had two of the best episodes, Flashes Before Your Eyes, and then The Constant.
Yeah,
which
okay.
we mentioned
All right, that
earlier.
makes that makes
The
a little-
Desmond episodes are literally the best ones. Like they are so strong, and they could stand out on their own. You could just watch those.
Yeah, and then like when he's on that boat with those, they're all trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like that was pretty good. I do like when going back to more of the
What the fuck?
moments from the show, Walt getting taken right away. Like I just had this
Yep.
from early in the season. That was a good one. There's the whole flashback scene with Hurley and when he's in the mental institute, and you know for sure that the guy he's making up, like it's an obvious like imaginary friend. But then the big what the fuck moment was Libby was in the same thing with him, and you're like, wait a minute, because she seems like completely like buttoned up and like good to go, like with that second group coming in, and you're like, wait a minute, what is going on? The Michael killing Anna Lucia and Libby and then freeing Henry was wild. Let's see. Go ahead.
I will say, even just the whole Henry Gale, like, is he who he says he is? Is
Yeah,
he not? And they
it's
brought
good.
him in. Like, that was incredible. Like, and also, where did that balloon come from? And where did the food? Here was another what the F moment. I forget her name now. She's been in a couple shows when they like come in off the boat before we really know the boat's really out there. The character who came in, and then Ben just pops her. I'm sorry, Locke. Locke just shoots her when she's trying to send for help.
Oh,
Naomi?
I don't remember her name.
yes, it was Naomi.
Naomi.
Yeah, Naomi. Thank you. Yeah, like
Yeah.
her whole story, like where she just parachutes in. It's like,
Well, and one
and
thing
she
that
has to
pissed me
pick
off
her
at the
penny.
time was so there was a time where you didn't know really who to trust that weren't in the original group.
Well,
And
Yeah.
Kate starts telling Jack all about Naomi, like in front of Juliet. And at that moment, you're like, you can't trust this lady. Like, what are we doing with this?
but
But
she
that-
was also the one going back to the Penny's boat thing. She was the one that said that Penny sent her.
Yes, because she had the picture. She had the
Yeah.
picture of Penny and Desmond.
Yeah.
Another. This isn't. I know it's odd to say what the heck moment, but like the whole you can't have babies on the island. Then
Yes,
Claire
I'll
go
put it on the
hesitate.
list. Yeah, that
But,
was
like-
pretty wild. And then like them going after Claire originally, and you're like, but I also thought it was really, really good where you just assume that all of the others are like bad news, right? And they're all just gonna do bad things. But then when you really look at it, you're like, well, have they really actually like hurt anybody yet? Like, have they done anything yet? Like, are they trying to help? Because that was one of my thoughts when they took Walt, is like, did they just want to like save the kid? And that's why one of my theories, going back to that question, was especially when we get in the hatch and we see like some of the cameras, I was wondering if it was sort of a Truman Show thing where these people don't know that, and like, because also the
It
plane
was.
crashes and like nobody has major injuries. Like there are people that got washed away, obviously they're dead, but like you're like, maybe these people, like, they were all fine. In fact, Locke went from not being able to walk to being able to walk, which is also
a couple times.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, twice. Now,
I'm not
what's funny
sure
about what
it
you
made
just
sense
said,
because I just think that would have made like how that group was there, and then they're like, you know what, it's not fair to have a kid here. Let's get the kid out, and the pregnant
yeah,
lady, she
power.
probably doesn't need to be here. Let's get the pregnant lady out too.
but it's also like there was something with kids and powers. Remember, Walt also was like special. We never really figured
Right.
that out. And he could
So-
like remember he talked to Shannon magically, even though he was in the water with the others. When he was off island, like was like calling on birds, and then that was a big theory that was going around. So what you said, like it was all about the children. Like, so children weren't able to be born on the island. Ben lied about being born on the island. So there's this whole weird thing. But then that never really meant anything.
No, but then
So this was-
what's her name was born on the island.
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Charlotte
and then-
was born on the island, and obviously Aaron was born on the island.
Aaron was born. Charlotte.
But Aaron also wasn't conceived on the island, which they said might also be a different thing. And then there was the whole thing with Sun and her,
Jin.
because like Jin wasn't able to have kids, and then all of a sudden they did, but she fucking cheated on Jin, and it was like, what the?
But wasn't there that old couple too? The woman said that she had terminal cancer, but then she didn't believe that she had cancer anymore.
Rose and Bernard.
Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, I'm healed. I don't feel the pain.
Bernard took her everywhere and went to a guy. And then remember, Rose was like, it didn't work, but just tell my husband that it did. But then like nobody gets sick on the island. But you're right, you can't have kids.
The other thing too is like, how many times did I see people literally get blown up and then get brought back to life on the show? Like boats get blown up.
Oh yeah, they just jump
helicopters
off.
blow up.
Yeah,
like
everybody's fine.
Everything
Also,
blows up and then no one has a fucking scratch on them.
This show had to be top 5 show ever in the, hey, we don't want to deal with this person, but we don't want to kill this person, so just knock them out. People get punched in the head or clocked in the head with just random stuff. Be like, fucking take this person out, like all the time.
How many concussions?
Oh, it had to be ripe with concussions. That's all it was.
I'll give you one of the theories that kind of goes to concussions. The whole Desmond. So once you kind of found out with him being exposed to electromagnetic, all that whole situation, a great Saeed line too. I haven't seen this much concrete since Chernobyl. Underneath the hatch. Is that because where hasn't Saeed been? But when you started to recognize his character and we started to see something, I'm like, okay, so he's gonna write this whole thing so it never happens. That's what I thought. Like the theory of Desmond, his centralized characters, that all these characters have misfortune, but he has some sort of power to like have some control. They're doing this time travel thing. I'm like, Desmond's going to reverse this plane from ever taking off. And like, I thought he would sacrifice himself because his story was he needed to get his honor back. He was discharged from the army. He never did anything that was worthy for, Mr. Widmore, and Penny kind of looked at him kind of like a bum. So I thought he would make this ultimate heroic sacrifice to make sure all the characters we love get to like, unfortunately, probably live their miserable lives.
Right.
And then that was like, nah.
It was kind of interesting though when they were like Widmore's whole thing was like this race around the world, and like Desmond wanted to do it, and then you're like,
gotta get his honor back.
Like, who cares? And then you're like, oh well, he wants to go back to the island, and then that's how Desmond gets to the island. So like, all right, at least that makes sense. But then there's also the scene where like Desmond and Jack are in the stadium together.
Yes,
that was the fucking weirdest thing ever. You're like, wait, what?
It was like sideways. I like a good flash forward, flash back, but the sideways hops were like, what? Hang on.
But think about that one was before we actually saw Desmond. That was the guy in the hatch.
Yeah.
That was like, so it was like the same. It was the premiere of season 2, but it was like simultaneous scenes. When he has Locke at gunpoint, then we see him run on the stairs, and you're like, Jack like, twists his ankle.
So the last season where they're doing this, like we'll call it the alternate timeline, right? No longer flash forward or flashback. So now Jack has a kid, Dylan Minette, who he never had a kid before. Sawyer's a cop. Like they're all doing stuff. What I guess we're led to believe is these characters they weren't going to go to heaven together. Like they wanted to wait to go to heaven together. So they waited. So they somehow in their minds created like a purgatory. Like, where are we here?
I got this.
Okay,
this is where I was getting to. So in the finale, right, you have people who like, they're in the church, right?
Yep. Yes.
And so Jack hadn't, sorry, 1 second.
Hadn't died yet.
No, he hadn't accepted the fact that he was dead yet. So like everyone there died at different times. So like time doesn't exist there. So people could have died of old age. People could have died the next day, but like they're all in that place together. And Jack has to finally accept the fact that he's dead.
Jack was the last one to accept it.
Yeah.
But
he then he got to see everybody again. He got to like,
but they're all dead at that point. They all really were on the island.
Yes.
Some of them died on the island.
And Ben is the only one who stays behind.
And Hurley.
Maybe Hurley's not
no,
dead.
Ben. Well, technically, Ben stays in. I know you mean that.
Are they all in there? Like, how did they choose who's there and who isn't?
So, because whoever they wanted to pay. Michael wasn't in there. Walt, we don't need you guys. Like, there was certain character. It was really convoluted. And I'll be honest, that's my biggest disappointment of the show is the whole 6th season of this flash sideways just to get to what Davey just said, what we could have got really in a 2-hour finale.
Yeah.
Like, we could have done a lot more storytelling on island history. And instead we're watching fake children, fake relationships, Kate and Claire having doing the baby thing again. Faraday, like, I know we killed him, but kind of cool to bring him back, but
Ben killed him.
Yeah. I forgot. We talked a little bit about this, but Eloise, the character, Faraday's mom, when she first tells Desmond, you don't buy this, that was another what the fuck moment. Like, it dead center, he's like, oh, I've got to buy this thing. And she's like, but you don't buy this.
Yeah.
And he's like, and you're just like, what's happening right now? And so
Desmond's the whole was trying to like speed everything up too. Like Desmond knew what was going on, so he was like getting these characters together. Like he was getting put in prison on purpose just so he could like tie all these loose ends together. And you're like, where are we going? Like,
he hits Locke with a car. He's like, I'm just gonna smash this guy with a car. I gotta go to jail.
But then it's not Locke. Then not Locke becomes like the Man in Black.
Oh,
my god. The whole last season and a half on the island when Saeed's a zombie, Locke isn't even Locke anymore. He's the fucking Man in Black.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the stuff that's really hard to defend this show, like from a big picture. Like, I wish we just said let's talk positively about it because that's like 3 seasons. But then the after, this is where you can just see.
I love the show. You love it more than anybody. I think it's great. I'm glad we're talking about it. But
my wife.
It's my favorite thing in the world.
It goes my son, wrestling, Lost, my wife.
The big 4 right there. The 4 horsemen of Rossi.
Jason Rossi, Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's a life.
All right, what
I
about
even have
this?
to tell my son some days.
What about this one for the
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Locke's dad shows up on the island and then Locke gets Sawyer to kill him? But the whole
he's the guy who killed Sawyer's mom.
It was Sawyer. Sawyer. He's legit Sawyer. That's one of his aliases. But he also go ahead. I was just gonna say he also said something to those guys, either to Sawyer or to Locke, that like, I don't know what you guys think this is, but like we're in hell. So that sort of like opened up the door of like maybe everybody already is dead and he's there. But like, did Ben specifically get him there to sort of like do something for Locke, or like all of a sudden it's like, hey, look who's behind door number 2?
It was, I have a magic box. There was like the storyline of a magic box for like a little while. And then that's what was in there. So it was almost like, how did they get him there? And like you said, what was really the motive? Was it to get Sawyer and Locke to kind of like connect? It was, those little things were really tough. But what you just mentioned again was one of those things like while you're watching live, like the creators knew what they were doing by having him say those lines. Like, this is what people think. Let's feed it. Let's feed the board.
But it's so funny. Like, you say the writers knew what they were doing, but there were times, like I said, where they just were like throwing shit at the wall. Be like, I don't know, like whatever.
Oh no, there's no doubt they were throwing shit at the wall. But I mean, like these little, like they would throw in these like a character or a little side piece just to get the audience like take the bait. Like if, like I said, if Twitter was around during, like I couldn't even imagine.
Oh, they'd explode. Well, there was this going back to Jacob and like all the nonsense and how convoluted that was when he's in the cave and one of the characters is asking him about like the names on the wall, and he's like, "Yeah, those are just names I wrote on the wall." Like he literally just tells you like all that stuff that you guys were worried about. Like it's stupid. You're like,
why was my name scratched off? It's just a line on a wall, Sawyer. I can erase it.
So here's my question. So if the writer's strike in the 2000s went from 2007 to 2008, which season of Lost is that? Is that season 4 or 5?
4. It's 4 or 5. So that's why it went from, they originally signed for 5. Once season 3 was midway through, it was a 5-season show. So they had 2 more full 24 episode. Then the writer's strike happened. They already had those 6 filmed that we talked about. That's why they broke them up. And then, I don't know, season 3, but then they did 16, 16, 16. So it's the equivalent.
Well, I'm looking at it. It says 14, 17, 18.
Well, I think, to be honest, because when you watch it live, some of those are 2-hour. So I think they split them into 2s. But averaging what would have been the equivalent of 2 full seasons.
And then one of them, there was like 1 or 2 times where it was legit it was just a like recap episode, which I was like, as you're binge watching it, I'm like, I just saw this. I don't fucking need this. I just saw all of these.
But things. that was one of the times I was super frustrated because they didn't tell you they were doing that.
Oh,
so you get your popcorn, you get your beers, you're ready to watch Lost, and people are going to be talking about this tomorrow. It's a fucking recap show.
I'm like, God
damn it. It was airing at 9. I think those last few seasons went to Thursdays, and they used to do 8 o'clock was the last week's episode with pop-up video of facts throughout the show.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad Christopher brought this up in the chat. I can't believe I didn't.
I was thinking to say that they look like they're the same age.
The Locke dad and Locke. He says they're only 9 years difference. I was gonna tell you the fucking like laugh out loud moments are the Locke flashbacks where he's supposed to be like this young gun and he looks even old. He actually somehow looks older with hair than without hair. Like throw some hair on him. I'm like, look at this fucking old guy. Look, who's dad? Mandelbaum.
That's when you know a show was 15 plus years ago, because like just all the effects of it, like that looked horrible. The submarine.
Yeah, the
submarine. Like the actual pilot is great. I think like they put a ton of money and you could tell. Other than that, a lot of the special effects are just like, even when they have like the plane under the ocean and like the, when they stage the whole crash, like that was another just.
Hey, if you maintain your childlike sense of wonder, who cares?
That's right.
That.
Yeah, the Oceanic 6, and then their whole plan to like lie.
Remember when they did a press conference? Would that really happen in real life?
They held a presser. Yeah.
Press conference.
Probably.
A presser? Like, hey, you survived this thing. Let's go talk.
I did it in what do you call it? They did it in Castaway.
Remember?
Yeah, but I mean in real life. Like in actual life. Would they do that?
I say yes.
Not right off the plane. Yeah.
No, listen, if there's a huge plane, remember like a few years ago, there was like a missing plane. People talked about it like crazy for like 2 days. So if there was a big old plane that they said
just happened, when the Air Force or the Navy just lost like a $3 billion plane.
But like if they were like pronounced dead and then all of a sudden they're back, I think they'd at least be on like the Kelly Clarkson show or something.
Wendy Williams.
Tonight we have Zach Levy and the Oceanic 6. She's dancing, singing a song with them.
And she probably got 5 new boyfriends. We haven't caught anybody coming out of the house yet, but just a matter of time. She's not lonely. I apologize.
What the fuck? Yeah, this.
All right, what else do I have here in my list of lists? Let's see.
We can touch on like there was just like while
Jack, this is pretty dark. When Jack he makes it back. He's he's part of the Oceanic 6, and the airlines gives everybody like free miles or whatever. So he just flies around hoping to crash.
Yes,
great line. I get on a plane every single like weekend and hope to crash.
What a psycho.
Where's your family, bro? Like, where's your friends?
Insane. Oh, and then the dude that played Scorpion, Rod, that you mentioned,
Yeah.
So do they have like a?
By the
they
way,
have-
he wasn't in Ghost of Tsushima. I fucked that up. Different actor.
okay, fair enough.
How dare you?
There's like a. They have like a Lazarus pit, is what they basically have, right? That's what they saved Saeed with. They threw him in the
Right.
old Lazarus pit.
There was so all that stuff is so weird.
And he's
like,
the one
again, when-
keeping the smoke monster at bay. So when Dogen dies, the smoke monster comes out.
And then Mike, like that's when Ben goes down and that's when he pures his sins and he sees his daughter and like
Yep.
he's about to die from the smoke. This whole smoke monster thing, like it was really cool for like 3 seasons. We were really rocking with it, and then we just went to hey,
And
it's
I
just a
remember
guy.
being like, well, that's fucking lame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I
it's just evil, just evil.
Yeah.
Michael showing back
wanted
up
to take
after Michael had been gone, and we see Michael on that boat. That was a what the fuck moment. That was a good
Yes.
comeback.
Oh, what was his name? It was Kevin.
Oh yeah, he had a different name, right? They all
Yeah,
saw him. They're
Kevin
like,
something. It was
I-
the name of the episode. I used to be really good with like I could name every episode. I used to be good with this, but
oh, when did he come
um,
back? Let's see.
it was either Kelvin something or Kevin. It was Kevin something.
I'll try to
like-
find it. What season was that? You think 4?
That would have been 5. Because that's when they blew up. 4. No, when they blew up.
Oh,
the boat.
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson, old Suns
The
point
Suns,
guard.
yeah.
I was
Kevin
gonna say,
Johnson,
is that KJ?
Yeah,
mayor of
100%.
Sacramento. But the thing with Michael is though, like, can he not die?
He couldn't die until he went back to the island to do this. That's where the freaking Jacob stuff comes back into play. Like, he drove as fast as he could into like a wall and like no scratches.
Yeah,
I just want to die. And then we saw Walt for the last time because he turned like 15 years old and was in that band. I forget the name of it offhand, but they had a hit. Hold on, what was it? That song is like, I want to kiss you like Michael, like Throwback or something, whatever that was.
Oh, what was the name of Charlie's shitty band?
Oh, Drive Shaft.
Drive Shaft.
You all, everybody. That was a jam, dude.
No, that song sucked.
Nah, dude, when they're in the diapers and they do the commercials.
Oh, so then like I'm like writing down all these character connections, and then you get to they just like unload it with the Jacob stuff at the end. So Jacob sees like a young Kate stealing a lunchbox and he pays for it. Jacob gave Sawyer the pen that he wrote the letter with to kill Sawyer. Jacob distracts Saeed so that Nadia gets hit by a car. Jacob visits Ilana in the hospital. Jacob was at Sun and Jin's wedding. Jacob gives Jack candy from the machine after his first surgery was performed. Jacob's in the cab with Hurley after he gets released from jail and gives him the guitar to bring back to the island. And Jacob was with Locke when he got pushed out of the window.
Jacob's when he falls, he's like, I'll touch him. Jacob with Jack, it's so like the cliche. It's like when the candy bar gets stuck, he's like, sometimes you just gotta things gotta get unstuck. It's like never ever have you walked up to somebody and said something.
Pretty
like
heavy-handed. You know what? I'm gonna start walking up to random people and saying the most cryptic shit and just walking away.
Because you could be someone's Jacob David. You could be that guy.
Like, you imagine if that like saved someone's life? Like, if you just walked up to him and said like the most random fucking thing you could think of.
They're like, wow. You know what I would say if I walked up to somebody?
I like to take old biddies and bunching mocks.
Like, could you imagine if that was the line where he's like,
a guy told me
he hands him the candy bar and he's like,
bunching mocks,
old biddies and bunching mocks. Walk away.
Save their life.
They change their life.
Yeah.
So Jacob could leave the island at any time that he wanted, but the Man in Black was stuck there.
Yes.
Man in Black was stuck because of Jacob killed him.
Because of their mom.
Hit his head on a rock. And
so Jacob killed it. So the Man in Black was dead the whole time.
Yes, and that's what he turned him into smoke. He went into the magic water, went down into the cork thing, and then became smoke. Makes sense. Couldn't leave the island unless Jacob died. So that Jacob's dying, he makes Jack Jacob.
Right. And then Jacob makes Desmond Jacob.
Wait, was it?
So no, then Jack makes Desmond Jacob.
No, Hurley.
Jacob.
Everyone for Jacob, who had been Jacob for hundreds of years, to like all of a sudden switch like 4 times in one episode was a little weird.
Yeah,
I'm out. He's like, that's it. I'm calling it right here. I'm tired of this shit. You guys save this thing.
So as much as I like the show, if you were to do season rankings, I think you could literally go 1, 2,
Absolutely.
3, 4, 5, 6.
You go in order.
I would have a hard time with 3. I would probably go like 1, 4, 2, 3, 5, 6.
I was gonna say I could
4 is
see some
really
people.
strong. If you go back, like 4 has a lot going on in there.
I did see, like, as I was watching, I do think you could go 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, 6. I don't know if I would put 4 ahead of, but yeah, either way, like that's the
5
first
and
2 are
6 were by far the
first 2 are
worst.
the best 2, and the last 2 are
Yep.
the worst 2.
Yeah, it's just there, and again, like to give like there's none of the seasons are like do I think are actually horrible. Like if you like the show, but like there's just so much of trying to cram in those last 2 seasons. And it's like we didn't need to do this. Like you didn't need like Teamy and that whole like. There's just so many characters on the show.
There's
You
a
talked about like
million
the
characters.
core. There's just so many, but like you have like some sort of tie and care to every single one.
We didn't even mention Miles, who
No.
is one of these characters that gets introduced with like Faraday and with Charlotte, but Miles can like see dead people or like talk to
Yeah.
Oh my
ghosts.
God.
That's just kind of
You
like
can hear
thrown
them.
in there. No,
And that was nothing with Echo. He got like a little Echo reprieve in that one house that he was in. There was a lot like that whole thing. Everybody had something weird intricacies. Yeah, you could listen to ghosts. And guess what? Miles survives. Can we talk about like the randos that make it off the island
right.
allegedly at the end?
Miles
You got crazy squirrel baby Claire, who there's another character they just said, screw it, fuck it. Let's just toss her in the crazy bin. Kate, Sawyer, Faraday. I'm sorry. What's his name? Lapidus.
I love Lapidus.
Lapidus.
I just
Fucking
love
guy.
yelling his. I would yell his last name at him all the time. Lapidus.
He was so good. And then some of the insults that Sawyer had for him and for Hurley were great.
Yeah.
But
and then Miles, that's it. Those are the people who fly off the island at the end.
Yeah.
Jack's over here sacrificing. Oh, Desmond was on that plane too, right? How did Desmond get out of there? He must have been on the plane. Yeah, at this point, you're like, yeah, whatever. I think so.
Yeah, he was out
and
of
then,
there. He left.
And then you have Ben and Hurley like, we'll watch the island. You guys take off. We got this thing.
How do you think
It's so weird.
here's my question for you guys. Let's say you like everything, you crash, you're there, blah, blah, blah. There's some weird shit going on. You find this hatch, you go down in this hatch. You also find in that hatch that there is a countdown and a computer, and you have to type in a code every like 88 minutes. Would you do that, or would you immediately be like, fuck that?
Oof. Me personally, knowing my personality, I'd be like, I'm in. I'll do it. I got this. I think I'd go crazy. Like after probably realistically in real time, if you're doing that every 108 minutes, so I'm thinking probably by the end of the week, I'm like, I can't sleep for longer than this much time. I'm out. If this shit ends, this shit ends. I'd say within a week.
What I was gonna say is like obviously they had found water because Jacob sort of led them there. Because that's the other thing is like you see Jack's dad in the fucking jungle and he like leads them to water, but it's not really Jack's dad. But that's how they found water. And he's like, yeah, I had to show you guys fucking water. But they have like an endless supply of water. They end up finding a bunch of food, which I also thought was smart with the show. Is like, yeah, right. But the first few episodes, there is like that fear of like where you're gonna get food. They're hunting boars and shit. But you're like, for this show to deal with like other issues, you can't have like food and water be a constant concern. So they kind of like squash that and then let you keep going.
That's a great point. So they did talk about that. That's why like their clothes, like they're wearing jeans. Like who wears the jeans to the beach anyways? But like they just said like they needed like as a show, like aesthetically, like what were we gonna do? Just topless and like short shorts, all like
topless would have been awesome.
Yeah,
well, that's I think Evangeline Lilly said at one point, like
hangers out.
No, like I wouldn't dress like this.
Yes,
like something like she was pissed. Like
jeans in a tank, and like they would occasionally we'd see a scene where like I think Jin and like our son one time he saw them like washing themselves in the ocean, but they never really there was never a concern their body odor or like what they were wearing. But
this was what like The Walking Dead. I get annoyed when shows like everyone on the show is just wet the whole time. Like everyone just looks wet.
Forever.
Well, same with like Rick in The Walking Dead, but like Evangeline Lilly or like Saeed's hair was just wet the whole time.
Yeah,
they're right on the ocean. You could take a little dip.
The rest of them was dry. That's what didn't make any sense.
No,
it's like Triple H coming out just like wet hair, like all the time.
The water bottle's drenched. Guys drenched, spitting it all about. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess like what are you gonna do? Because then there were certain times where some characters are you're like, if they're that because like there's one episode where one character's telling another character like put sunscreen on, then like the next character
Yeah.
they're all wearing like long sleeves and pants, and you're like, oh, this was a show. If you were into cleavage, there's quite a bit of cleavage in this show.
A lot of that.
Good amount.
Like
Good amount of cleavage.
even like that random girl that was working for Widmore at the end, like randomly is wearing like a tank top and like cleaved out. I'm like, all right,
They know what they're doing. They know what they were doing.
it's a goddamn
Disney knows.
Disney show, for Christ's sake.
But that I think you know, I know we're kind of ping-ponging about like different characters and like how they tie in and what their worth was. Like there were so many times too where like characters you thought were like, if we're going back to wrestling, we're getting the push, and then like we talked about Echo, we talked a little bit about Faraday, just a little bit, but like Widmore, like, and that whole thing just kind of went away. The whole Widmore angle just dead, move on. What was his point? Was he a good guy or a bad guy? Famously, I forget the what's the actor's name? Alan Dale, I think. And they were all on Jimmy Kimmel the night of the finale. It aired on a Sunday. And he has the famous line, you can look it up on the YouTubes. He says, after, like, he was part of the cast there, the dais, and he just says, I don't even know if I was a good guy or a bad guy. And they're all just like, move it, like, all right, well, now on to the next guy. It was just like so many of those things.
If you didn't get in on the first 2-3 seasons, then like who knows what your character really was supposed to be. Yeah, I didn't care for him at all. I would lean more towards bad guy, but you don't really know. Like they're all like Jacob, Man in Black, and Ben are all bad guys too.
Jacob's the worst guy. Can we just, like, when you really think about it, he pulls all these people from what you just mentioned. So he gives Sawyer a pen to write a note, tells Kate, like, oh, steal, like, be a bad guy. Like, I'm going to need you in the future. Like,
he's the worst
so
guy,
he's
but
manipulating.
Ben's a piece of shit, though. Ben's a giant piece of shit. Because Ben also orchestrated the others killing everybody from the Dharma Initiative.
Yes.
Like the Dharma Initiative, people aren't even there
Yeah.
anymore. Like that's the others that are taking over the Dharma
Right.
Initiative.
That, I remember that being a what the fuck.
That.
Learning that,
gassed
like,
them
the
all
Dharma
out.
Initiative isn't even the Dharma Initiative.
He gassed them
That
all
is,
out.
that is a great point. He just murdered like
Everybody.
100 people.
Straight up.
People that he like lived with. Yes.
And that was
then
all
got
because
mad
Richard
that someone
Alpert.
killed one person he liked.
Yeah, so like the whole history of the
He
island,
shot
you have like
Locke in the back.
like we don't have like just kills him.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't die because then Walt tells him to get up. Weird stuff. Just weird stuff. But think about it, like the island itself, which there's so two things that I'll just ping and then we can, you know, I'll shut my mouth on this, is that there were supposed to be 2 episodes that never got aired, that like they never finalized, let's say creatively. There was going to be a Vincent episode where
Dog?
the theory, yes, the dog. So there was a theory that he's like, you were going to see what he saw. Because sometimes he would just go off into the, and this is
Yeah, he
early.
disappeared.
Yes. So he would just go out and then you come back. So there was a concept of an episode that they would just be like 5-minute blocks of like seeing all the things that he saw
That's cool.
and the conflicts, intermingling conversations, maybe a little hookup here or there, and then obviously mystery stuff. And then there was
All
going to be a
sex.
total
He just sees all the couples having
Instead of
sex.
just watching sex.
joins in, just starts licking. And then there was an episode of the island itself. There was going to be like just like the history of the island, but then they didn't know how to really write that. So that's where you got the Jacob, Man in Black kind of history, because those are like the first people there with the Alice and Janney mom. So those are 2 episodes that were like heavily touted for a long time that we never got the way they originally
Interesting.
thought.
These are the Roddy T scores by season.
Okay.
96% season 1, 100% season 2, 75% for 3, 89% for 4, 92% for 5, which is outrageous.
The nerds. Those are the nerds.
And then 69%. Nice. For
Nice.
season 6. Nice. So they recognize 2 is the best, 6 is the worst. They would go 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 6. 5. There's no way 5 is better than 4 or 3, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the only other thing that also with this show, like Emmys, won in the first season, bunch of actors won throughout. The 6th season, I don't even think they were nominated. I think Locke and Ben were, but
Maybe some
that's it.
People's Choice Awards or some
honestly.
Nickelodeon awards.
Like that's when you know when a show that has like
And
historical
got
run,
slimed.
like the last season of most like massive shows, like it's going to happen with Succession, right? Like these shows just win it all. Even Game of Thrones, that was garbage last season, I think. Well, at least very end. Like but wins all the awards, and rightfully so. This show is like, is that thing still on? Let's fucking try.
I
it.
still get
Golden
irrationally
I'll look at the
angry
Golden
about.
Globes. Oh, go ahead.
I like. I'm thinking of like the final seasons winning awards. Rhea Seehorn not winning a single Emmy is a fucking tragedy.
I don't even know if she got nominated.
I don't think she did.
It doesn't make any sense. All right, so the just from Golden Globes, it won Best Drama in 2005. So that must have been after
Rossi's gone.
That must have been after season 1. He
Okay.
confirmed this. So it won in 2005, which I assume is based off of 2000. No,
Season 1.
Or no, was that 06? No, maybe season 1 got nominated. Season 2 it won. Matthew Fox got nominated, didn't win. Naveen Andrews got nominated. Saeed got nominated, didn't win. Then in 07 it got nominated again, didn't win. Evangeline Lilly got nominated for actress, didn't win. And then Michael Emerson, who plays Ben, got nominated in 2010. So that must have been
That's the final season.
He got nominated but didn't win. Those are
Like he was great. I would say as far as like TV villains go, like he's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Ben Linus is an all-time villain, TV villain.
He's like the most complicated one too, because then again, there's moments when you're rooting for him. Like when they kill his daughter, like you don't look at him as an enemy.
Yeah, he's a good character in the sense too that like when Kate or Saeed or Jack have to like trust him or not, and sometimes you're like, hey, I think you kind of should, and then other times you're like, fuck that guy, like you. So they do a good job with that.
Yeah, and I think that's what this show. Like that's was that Golden Globes or was that Emmys?
That was Globes. I think they got nominated for more Emmys. That was just
Definitely.
the Globes. Oh yeah, Emmys they got nominated for a lot more because they got like drama series. They won in 05, 07.
won the
John
first
Locke
year.
won.
Is it like an ensemble cast one too? That's the Golden Globes, I think.
Maybe. Let's see. Yeah,
they won.
They nominate for like specific episodes too in Emmys.
Oh, because it's like writing and it's by episode.
Yeah, or like even like an actor, they'll take like the performance from one episode and be like, "You win for this," which is the whole series or season, I think.
It's funny back then. I don't know now. You probably can get it more now than even then, but they would reveal the episodes after, like the showrunners are the ones that push it out. So the Desmond flashes before your eyes, the one where he's kind of going through time when he's like reaching for things and he's back in the army. That was the one that for season 2 that they didn't win, but that was the one that nominated them for writing.
Is it the Constant?
That's cool.
The Constant was later. Yeah, that one won. That one won.
Yeah.
So the year that they won Best Series for the Golden Globes, they beat out Commander-in-Chief, Grey's Anatomy, Prison Break, and Rome.
Fucking Rome was badass.
Was it good? Okay.
But
Season
that's
1
like,
of Rome was fucking awesome.
How crazy is that to look back? Like that seems like, of course they would have won, right? Like, and you're just looking back.
It was like now it's like powerhouse show. It's like all good shows. Guess which one? What won Best Musical or Comedy that same year? I'll tell you.
Hell Show.
Desperate Housewives.
Wait, what? Musical or they combine those?
Yeah.
Well, they do.
The first 2 seasons were amazing.
It beat Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That is the Jethro Tull beating Metallica for best metal album.
Dude, Aqualung. That thing slapped.
No, this was not Aqualung. This was like a shit.
Little Green Apples beating Yesterday for best song in like 1964 as well. Those are the 2 that people will relate to. But
you're gonna have an upset here or there. All right, I think I've given you everything. I mean, I took all these notes and I
have you. Okay, let me ask you this. So now, having done this podcast, having watched the show, do you see why this was so hyped up back in the day? Do you get it? Or is it like, because we watched it differently. So like, do you understand like why this was such a cultural phenomenon?
100%. Yeah. Because I think like Rossi was saying before, there is sort of like a, like what's going on kind of like side conversation this whole time, but like, what's the point of the island? What's this? So you're trying to like figure things out as it's going. Plus it's just a good like character drama and you have all these characters like intertwined. You're rooting for certain characters. They're doing things that you like, that you don't like and all of that. So this, I did for sure have this is an appointment. I don't want to watch this not live feel to it, like a Game of Thrones, like where you're like, I gotta watch this because the next day it's going to be the big talker. And like for 20 years ago, like the way it was shot, like we make fun of the CGI now, but like you could see this being like at the time being like, oh, they put a lot of money into this. Like this is like watching a movie every week. So yeah, I for sure get it. This is one of those kind of shows.
Right on.
Anything
Happy
else?
for you.
Rossi, yeah.
What show are we going to revisit next?
It's funny you said that. I was actually thinking about that because I'm like, what other great shows have we not?
Did you guys ever do Sopranos?
We did.
No,
But
I feel like you and Bessie did the Sopranos. You started it, and then
no, you know what we did? We ended up talking Sopranos because we did the Sopranos movie, which was not a good movie, but we did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Sopranos. I think I like this more.
Well, this is more a talker. Like this is more of a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like Sopranos, I know you like The Wire, and I couldn't get through all that dialogue, but like those are like there's only so much. Like this had intricacies, and this was like mystery and elements. That's why like this show to me, the reason I've loved this show, and I like a part of me always looking for it, and everything I watch is because like no shows care. Like when you're watching season 4. Relates to season 1 this well. I think like this show does these things where like everything matters, everything counted, and there's flashbacks, and like you learn so much about these characters in a non-traditional way. And today, like
that's a good point. Like
on most shows, they don't develop them like this show developed characters in such a way that you could have 12 main stars. You could have a season 1 24 episode run, and only 2 characters were repeated in flashbacks.
Yeah, I would agree.
Almost 20 different ties back to the hit pass, which is crazy.
And that's why I mentioned like Game of Thrones, because like Game of Thrones, you could go back and watch season 1 and then watch an episode from season 5 and be like, oh, holy shit, like they actually teased something from that and they kind of were doing that or whatever else. I do
think that's all because of shows like this. I think Twin Peaks started that whole
that's one that I've never watched all the way through. Twin Peaks would be a good podcast episode, probably.
Because that's what, 2 seasons or 3 seasons?
2 original seasons.
2 originals and 1 extra.
Now we just 25 years later, which oddly is really fucked up because it actually ties into the show when you watch it. And then they did this last season. What is the most bizarre, hard to watch, but if you're just a complete nut, go for it. But some people think it's amazing television. I think also got nominated for crap a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That original run of those 2 seasons were incredible because again, it's these things like a plane crash is the hook of this show. That was the death of a teenage girl and where it goes from there and how like you forget the origins because it gets lost in all these great stories. I
agree. All right, good stuff. Ross, you guys ever doing your podcast? You guys retire that?
That's a good question. It's always the microphone is hung up, but just life and priorities got in the way.
Listen, I get it. It's
no, you don't, because we're still doing this.
That's true.
But that's like your life. You guys, we want you.
If Billy D can eke out fucking podcasts about a show that nobody watched every week.
Oh god damn it. Don't talk shit about the god. They're having a nice time.
They're having a nice time, but like I don't know anybody who's ever seen an episode of Psych.
Well, those 2 guys love it, all right?
I'm not yucking anyone's yum. That was wrong of me. I apologize.
No, you don't have to. But I will say
that twice where you've made fun of them for Psych. They like Psych. If you like Psych, Billy D and you did it before.
Did you guys watch Suits?
No, I didn't watch Suits.
No. I tried to start because it's on Netflix now, so I started watching it. I tell you what, talk about Megan unremarkable, right?
Oh, jeez.
Jesus Christ. I don't see what the big deal is.
Now we're gonna get
Here's the hot take on Suits. The soundtrack's incredible.
Soundtrack's great.
Music's fantastic. My wife was watching
that creepy other lawyer, the guy with the long face, the oval face.
This guy?
Yeah, that guy fucking get him off my screen. He's hard to look at.
Yeah, that show, it's like one of the most watched streamers now, right? Just because of Markle, I guess.
That makes me very uncomfortable. I'll just say it.
Of
all the shows that could ever be streamed, fucking Suits.
On some USA show.
People are into the fucking royal families. That's the whole thing.
Oh, I never really.
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't
get her. I don't get the big deal. I don't get the whoop. What's the whoop with Meghan Markle?
I don't get anything.
She married a ginger prince, dude. She married a ginger prince.
Great, dude. Yeah, you watch it on Disney Plus, right? There's one of those every day.
There is. Actually, that's really messed up. When I go on Disney Plus, his face is plastered all over that thing. I'm like, can I just get to Coco? Like, what are we doing?
I'm trying to think what else. Well, we'll have Ahsoka coming out in a couple of weeks. Next week, we're actually doing Saw. Rossi, we're doing the whole Saw franchise.
Oh, that's right. We got a Saw retrospective.
Wait a minute.
Franchise.
Got a question, though. Pop
quiz. You want to jump
come back?
I'm all.
Come back for Saw?
I'll see you next week this time. I got the link.
Third man in on Saw?
Saw is very Lost-like in its own way.
I
That
love
there was a
Saw.
nice run. A nice run there. Those first few movies, we're rolling. Then when we started just releasing them yearly,
Well,
the traps are great.
you
Traps
kind
never
of
go.
actually you kind of trapped yourself because they were originally released yearly.
No, I
One,
thought 2
two,
came out 2 years later.
I don't know. Next year, right out, right. 04,
You know
05,
what?
06, 07, 08. Boom, boom,
I'll
boom,
listen
boom,
next week
boom.
to find that out. I don't know if that's true or not.
So
I'm gonna
what was
listen.
the last Saw that came? Was Spiral the last Saw movie that's come out?
Yep.
Yes.
And then that was the 9th one, and then Saw X comes out this
Is
Friday.
Jigsaw is the 8th one, right? Jigsaw was 8th.
Yep.
Jigsaw was 8, and then Spiral.
Saw 3D was the 7th one.
Oh,
So Saw 1 through 6, then Saw 3D, I believe.
Well,
and
it was
then,
Saw the final chapter, then Jigsaw, then Spiral.
I think
now
that's
Saw
yes,
10.
that's 7.
is the
7
final
was
chapter also the 3D one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because that's the one with the wife in like the middle of the town, or whatever. That's
Dude,
easy.
so Benjamin Linus and Miles both featured prominently in Saw 1, which to me is a top 10 horror movie.
It's one of the
original Saw.
It's a great movie. It's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
It again, the hook of it is like this guy's gonna chop potentially his body part off. That's why you went to go see it. But when you watch it, you're like, there's some good crime drama here. Families getting abducted.
It's great.
How
Dude,
soon before you hacked off your own foot, by the way? Hour?
Couldn't do it.
I don't think I could do it either.
Couldn't
I thought that
could not, would not do it.
Well, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to die anyway. So either bleed out or
I don't know.
I go out my way.
Dude.
That's a tough position to put yourself in. Would you cut your leg off or just die?
You're gonna die anyway.
whatever?
Yeah, but like, there's
There's
no
hope
guarantee you cut your leg off, right? You're bleeding like crazy. You don't know where you are.
Not only that, you
go down the
probably- it's hard-
hallway.
it's hard to
What
get
you might
into
just
the
be in
bone.
another locked room. Like you got a bum leg going. Like I'm not doing that.
Man.
Yeah, and like who says how you have the strength to do anything after
Well,
that?
why wouldn't
But
if you
here's what
got to go
happens
through
next.
bone? Why would you just try to go through the chain with the hacksaw?
Here's what I do now. What they did try to go through the chain.
They started that way.
You couldn't get through
and
it.
then
Couldn't get
he
through
grew
it.
it, yeah.
Here's what I would do now. Now that we've seen Saw, if you wake up, you and me are on opposite ends of the room, and there's a body in the middle, and one of us has a gun with a bullet. Now kill the guy in the middle. Like make
Kill the
sure
guy in the
he's
middle.
dead because he fucking wasn't before.
Or start poking him with a stick. Be like, "What's that?"
Shoot
fucking
him in
guy
the
doing?
brain because you're like, this guy might just be in on it. He just for kicks.
Yep.
I
All right,
shoot
so
him.
that's our plan. That if the three of us are in a room together and there's another dead body,
Shoot
we're
the
like,
guy
all right,
in the middle.
start
We don't know
messing
that
with
guy. We don't know that guy.
So kill the guy in the middle,
Fucking kill him first.
even though you even perceivably it looks like he's dead because there's blood coming out of his goddamn head.
And his face looked like it got peeled off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fool
we're gonna
once.
waste the bullet.
Shame on me. You told me twice. No, how's that go? Anyway, no, I'm
Strike
killing
three.
the guy in the middle.
Strike three.
I'm killing that fucking guy.
I will just say that is by way, like we talked about great villains, all that. This what's his name? Jigsaw, I guess. Him plotting that out to be in the room for what is that? That has to be almost a day.
Yeah.
That's how long that movie, like 10 hours? What a
Yeah,
movie.
he gave himself like a thing to like slow his heart rate down or whatever. He
Yeah.
gave himself a little shot, put himself down. But that's the thing with the Saw movies is you find out he may have had some accomplices.
Well, yes, but anyways. Lost. Great show.
We'll talk about that next week.
All right. That's gonna do it for us.
It's a lot of shit, man.
You want to get in on
Getting pulled
Lost?
into something.
No. All right.
Cool.
All right. Well done. All right.
What
we'll
would
be
you,
back-
how about this? Do your dork? No, I need your dork score though. I need to know what is
for
your
the whole
out of state?
series?
Yeah.
I would probably say 5.
I'm gonna go 4.
Four.
We're still gonna go 6 out of 6, but
Yeah, 2 of the seasons are dog shit.
I'm going 5 for sure because I think the first 3 seasons I really like quite a bit, and even though it drags at the end, it was weighted properly enough where I'd go 5.
My rationale is like you give it a point for every season that's decent and no points for seasons that sucked. So it's a 4.
Right, fair enough.
Huh.
All right, well that'll do it for us. You can
Rossi, what's your score?
6.
I'll 6.
This is
All
my
right, 6.
favorite
I'm still
season.
giving it a
So
6.
we're landing at a 5 again. We're good.
All right, hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Dork Podcast, and you can also subscribe, write a review, the whole thing. Tell a friend, tell a dork. That'll do it for us. Next week it is Saw to kick off #Dorktober. Rossi, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having you. Thank you for having you.
Davey, promise
Thank
me
you.
a
Thank
million
you for
times
having
over,
you too.
you'll never do another rule.
Yeah, I can't promise you that.